This is my future selves talking. I am back after a short hiatus of avoiding this. This happened a lot to me where I just didn't know what to do or I just avoided it. I am fascinated about how distinct the energies are that I feel between these two. It is also rather cool how I can sense them very clearly, something that I feared would be a major problem for me when I consider this idea. Now I want to go back to this because it is all very magical to me. This idea of not knowing who it is who's communicating because it's just thoughts was very, very troubling to me. But it turns out that they're very distinct in their presence and how they sense, and how I sense them, and how they feel. So here we go.
We have talked about combining, and that topic can be expanded endlessly and combined ad infinitum, but now I want to talk more about growing. Growth is another dimension of what we are about. You can see growth all around you when you look at nature. Growing is what nature is all about. When you are born, you grow visibly from that moment on. You grow in many ways, especially in your capacity to live in new ways. First, you grow physically and mentally. You learn how to talk and walk, and your limbs and mind expand to help you with this fascinating process. Later, you begin to interpret and understand the world around you. All this time, your body is growing and developing into unique shapes and abilities. Your muscles and your bones grow to accommodate your desires to move and to extend your ability to play and shape the world that you are in. After a while, you notice that you have interests that extend far beyond your physical shape. You see the stars and the moon, and you wonder about the universe and what place you play in the immensity that you sense is around you. You see so many people and their different paths and how they choose to live, and it makes you consider what paths you want to take and how you want to live.
Who would have guessed that this next topic, which is one of the characteristics of the divine in us, would be growing? I would have never thought of that. However, when you think about it, it's very, very appropriate. You think about our growth from being two cells into developing our muscles, our minds, our bodies, and really starting to understand and start to figure out what's life is going on around us. And all the time, our body's growing and developing. We're learning things, and we're getting some unique capacities that are part of our awareness as to what it is that we are, what are our unique talents, and what are our new unique capacities. And I think it's very interesting to look at this growth. But then after a while, there's this fascinating process. We don't grow anymore physically, our own shape, how we are, that stops. And they bring up a very, very interesting point. Okay, so you've got this body, and then you start to see the stars and the moon, and you start to wonder about the universe. This is exactly what happened to me when I was a little kid. I used to sit out in the grass at my parents' house and just think about what's out there, what's going on, and figure out what my place was. And of course, that's always ongoing for me. But it's a sense of what is around me, a sense of what is around you. And then you kind of start to see yourself in a different way because you see different people and how they act, their different paths. And then you start to make a choice as to how you want to live. And it makes you really look at what paths you want to take and how we want to live. I think this is a very appropriate conversation about our lives and being conscious about choosing our path based on all the things that we've learned and all the things that we've understood thus far as a part of our growth.
At some point, you discover that there are impulses and thoughts that come to you that you do not know the source of. You get great ideas and see new wonders of how all this works together so fluidly and smoothly, and you wonder how it all can happen without some kind of intelligence that is far beyond your ability to perceive or conceive. When you start to question and ponder on these concepts, then you are really beginning to grow. The reason for this is that your physical growth is limited by your eventual stature and dimensions. Your spiritual growth, however, is not limited. When you start to openly consider what is possible for you, and you begin the process of searching for the divine in you, in others, and in the universe, then your growth begins in earnest. This is not to say that you did not grow before, but it means that the exceptionally big growth that you are capable of begins at the point that you become rigorous at finding out the meaning and purposes of your life. When we look at growth, we take a different view of this. We have been through many eons of growth, and so our growth becomes a function of your growth. Our roles are often that of growth catalysts. It is like we are the fertilizers for your growth. We design custom sets of experiences for each of you to facilitate and accelerate your growth patterns.
Can you remember how old you were when you started thinking that there was something else going on? Like when you were working on, say, some writing or some music or some poetry or whatever, that you started to get these ideas from some source that you had never thought of before, the stuff that you knew wasn't anything to do with you. I think it's a very interesting phenomenon when we finally figure out that there is some other source, there's some kind of intelligence that's going on around us that makes things work so smoothly. Think about your body and how well it works. Like you can see and talk and hear and you can move, and it all works together so beautifully and so well, and all of nature is working together. And so it's like this becoming aware that there's something else out there, and it's far beyond our ability to figure out or to even conceive of, because it's so vast, it's so big. And then when we start to recognize this, then I think that that's when we really start to grow. The point here is that for me at least was that I wanted to know what was going on out here, and I started to inquire and ask. And so I have this beautiful record, as you can tell, and what I'm sharing with you now, of what they have to say about what the existence is and their beautiful intelligence. And so we have limits as to what our body can do in terms of our shape. But then we realize that there are no limits to our spiritual growth. And that's like our next step in this life, is just to say, okay, so here's my eyes, here's my sensibilities, here's my nervous system. Now I'm not changing that much, but there is something much, much bigger, and we can start to process and look at life in a different perspective. And my encouragement to you, which has been the most valuable, wonderful experience of my whole life, is to ask, to make inquiries, and to find out about the universe and find out about the divine that's in you. And then when we start to take that next step beyond our body to our spiritual, then we start to really develop. We have exceptionally big growth, and we start to become capable in some other areas that we never knew that was possible. There's the physical, but then there's this other area of growth that we can take on. And that's an area that I encourage everyone to take on and to look at. They say when we look at growth, we take a different view of this. We have been through many eons of growth, and so our growth becomes a function of your growth. I think it's an interesting concept, isn't it? Like they're already growing, but they can grow through us growing. Our roles are often that of growth catalysts. It is like we are the fertilizer for your growth. We design custom sets of experiences for each of you to facilitate and accelerate your growth patterns. So there's this beautiful thing here that's going on where we have these experiences that are custom designed just for us to facilitate and accelerate our own growth. And through that growth, the development we do, then they grow as well. It's a beautiful concept. It's collaboration. It's working together. It's really amazing to see that this is all working in our favor as a result of our inquiry and our step into the spiritual. I hope you're enjoying this material as much as I enjoy sharing it. It's been such an honor and blessing to me in my life to have this opportunity to share what I consider to be the greatest concepts, the most profound and wise ideas from the greatest intelligence of the universe to you. The one way that you could help me out, this is sponsored by my nonprofit called Spiritual Solutions, and we are a small entity. And one way that would really help is if I could ask a favor of you, and that is to listen to more of the videos. I'm right on this edge where I need some more hours of viewing. And when it gets to beyond that, then YouTube's going to be a lot happier with me. So I'd appreciate your cooperation. I can promise you, if you'll take more time to listen to the videos, the concepts in the videos, it's going to really improve your life and make you feel better about things. So I'd appreciate your cooperation. I'd love it if you could like it and comment, and also get some notifications going on, subscribe. I would appreciate it very much, and it'd help us out a great deal. Thank you.
These patterns are what we look at and help you redesign. All of you are part of patterns of behavior and thinking, and they are often a function of your environment and societal factors. You are a function of your upbringing and the teachings of your parents and other teachers. Once you see that the patterns of your thinking are limited or do not work well in all scenarios, you begin to question and look at alternatives. From the diversity that we create from you, you begin to see that there are many different patterns, and that creates confusion and further questioning. Questions and the search for their answers are how you grow. Having so many alternatives also stretches you, because then you must evaluate carefully and thoroughly to come up with solutions that work universally, not just in your small community or just for you. All these factors work together to get you each to grow. When you grow, we further expand our development and influences. This is how we grow into new arenas through you. I can feel God back there just chomping at the bit to get into this.
Are you an observer of patterns? Do you look at the patterns of your behavior? Do you look at the patterns of others? I think it's very illustrative to look at the patterns of behavior that we have and our thinking, and where those patterns came from and where we got them from. Obviously, it's from our society, it's from our parents, it's from our different environments that we have around us. But it's interesting to look at these patterns because you find a lot of confusion. Like, for example, where did this pattern come from? Where did this pattern come from? And how good is it? How well does it work? And what kind of help could we have to improve it? When we get thinking beyond the patterns that were given to us to some new patterns, then we're starting to think like the divine, because we start to question and look at alternatives. They say, from the diversity that we create from you, you begin to see that there are many different patterns, and this creates confusion and further questioning. Questions and the search for their answers are how you grow. How willing are you to ask good questions? How willing are you to be curious, to really get in deep and look at things, and not just questions about your own patterns, your own behavior, but what about the patterns of the universe? How do we figure out what those patterns are, and how do we find solutions that work universally? Not just our little community, not just our friends, not just our lives, but these are the factors that we want to work together and to grow. And the way we do that is by asking questions, by looking at alternatives, and developing ourselves and the influences around us. And that's how we grow with the divine, is that they grow through our development. It's a beautiful concept that we can reconsider and look at new patterns and make better patterns that work universally, not just in our own little small spaces.
Not only do you grow from what we create for you, but you also create yourselves. This is not just a case of us pulling strings and making puppets out of you as you have previously supposed. Each time you decide and make it from a place of creativity and newness, you create a new space for each of you. When you discover that you have amazing abilities to create and that each of your choices resonates into the universe eternally, then you start to see your part in creation. Each time you decide, you grow from it. Each time you defer a decision, you grow from that also. Each time you drift through life, it also creates a new space, but not one that you or others grow from. The purpose of your lives is to move beyond the physical realm of growth and into the spiritual realms. It is clear that the physical spaces are very important to you, and they are a part of your existence that is very obvious and pressing. When you move into the spaces where there is only silence and subtle impulses, then you reach into the realms of the infinite and areas where you can grow infinitely.
There are really two sources of our growth based on this text. One is that we grow from what they give to us, meaning that we have these experiences, we have these different environments, we have these different things that occur to us, and we also are a part of nature, and so we grow from that. But the point here is just very poignant, and this is a shift. I think you noticed that we went to a male voice. The previous section here was from the female divine, the goddess, and now we're going to the male divine, which is God. And I hope you can sense from these texts how different they are and their different perspectives and their personalities, how different they are in terms of their perspectives and what they talk about. So what God is sharing here is that he's saying that we are not just puppets. We're not just a part of them pulling our strings, but we are actually creators. And there's a very interesting thing that we can talk about here is just because creativity is a part of the bigger space, the bigger universe. And when we discover that we have amazing abilities to create, and that each of our choices resonates into the universe eternally, then we can start to see that we have a part in creation. Now, if you think about that just for a second, I just want you to just think about this. Think about each of your creations and the things that you're doing with your life and see that they resonate and continue through the universe eternally. It's kind of heavy. It's kind of awesome as well, because if we're creating really, really great projections, really great projects, then each time we decide to do something great, then that decision we grow from, and then also others around us can grow from as well. He says, each time you drift through life, it also creates a new space, but not one that you or others grow from. Isn't that interesting? I know there's many times in my life when I feel like I'm just drifting. I'm not really pushing. I'm not really growing. I'm not really creating something. And that's not the space where I can grow. It's not the space where others can grow either, because I'm not creating that space for myself or for others. He says, it is clear that the physical spaces are very important to you, and they are a part of your existence that is very obvious and pressing. Like, for example, we know we have to eat, we have to do things in our lives, and we're thinking and we're looking and we're hearing. All these things are very, very pressing to us because this is our existence. But here's the great challenge. When you move into the spaces where there's only silence and subtle impulses, then you reach into the realms of the infinite and the areas where you can grow infinitely. I love it when things are quiet, because that's the time when I can sense them. That's the time when I can feel them. That's the time when I can feel those subtle impulses, and all there is just quietness. And that is the space where we can really start to grow infinitely, and we can start to develop way beyond what we thought was possible for ourselves. I think that's such a beautiful concept, is to go into those infinite spaces beyond the physical.
While you can grow to a certain size and shape in your body, what can you grow into with your spirit? What is possible for you to learn and grow into when you slip into the concepts and ideas of the infinite universe? When you do slip into the intelligence that you feel guiding you and blessing you, how will that affect your physical life? Most of you live in the physical domain and focus purely on your senses and sensations. What would happen to those senses and sensations if you came to them from a different space? Would you sense more and enhance your ability to experience with more sensitivity and intensity if you were to live with the infinite and yet experience the physical? Part of your growth is to discover that you are much more than what you can see with your eyes or feel with your hands. The fascinating discoveries come when you open your minds to the unseen worlds and what you only sense with your spiritual eyes. When you do sense us and the influences that are always around you, but hidden until you seek them, then you really begin to grow and expand beyond what you thought was growth. When you grow and develop into new realms and thinking, then it changes the landscape both for you and for those around you.
Clearly, we've grown into this certain size and shape with our body. Now, the question is, what can we do if we grow into another space, which is the spiritual, which is the non-physical? And what could happen if we really started to explore these concepts and ideas of the infinite universe? He says here, When you slip into the intelligence that you feel guiding you and blessing you, how will that affect your physical life? My assertion to you, and the answer to this question is when you start to step into the infinite universe, into the concepts of the universe, that it changes our physical life dramatically. What I'm saying about that is that the more spiritual I become, I believe that my body is starting to respond to it. I'm healthier. I heal more quickly. My life is more vibrant and more interesting. When we take these ideas of the intelligence and we put them into our lives, then it changes our body. And when we feel like we're being guided, we feel like we're being blessed, then our physical life changes significantly. It's very, very important that these two work together. He says, most of you live in the physical domain and focus purely on your senses and sensations. Have you met people like that? They're just purely into their body and there's nothing else. There's no other perception of anything outside and beyond our sensibilities and our senses. What would happen to those senses and sensations if you came to them from a different space? There's this implication that if we take this from a different perspective, that our senses improve, that our awareness improves, everything improves in our body when we take on these new concepts. When you sense more and enhance your ability to experience with more sensitivity and intensity, if you were to live with the infinite and yet experience the physical. This is something I've been talking to people about for many, many years. The ultimate existence, in my view, is to have both. We have a really beautiful body, we have some really wonderful experiences. But when we integrate the intelligences of the universe into our lives and have relationships with them, have conversations with them, then the intensity and the sensitivity of our life increases geometrically. It's amazing because we still have the physical, right? But we're also including this other piece of it. Part of our growth is to discover that we are much more than what we can see with our eyes or feel with our hands. This is difficult for a lot of people because they're so used to just looking at this. And then we have some fascinating discoveries come when we open our minds to the unseen worlds and what you can only sense with your spiritual eyes. When you do sense this and the influences that are always around you, but hidden until you seek them, then you really begin to grow and expand beyond what you thought was growth. When you grow and develop into the new realms and thinking, then it changes the landscape both for you and for those around you. So not only are we thinking about this and the physical, but we're changing our viewpoint to include the other realms and other people and the whole landscape, the whole view of what we have changes and improves. It's a remarkable transformation and it's really wonderful.
When the landscape changes, then we grow, because we then can begin to create new landscapes and horizons that reflect the kinds of shifts that we want to implement. When the landscapes change in ways that all the individuals and all of the entities within the landscapes change, then we are developing ourselves because we are creating and evolving in ways that can only be done when we have new landscapes and even events that surprise and delight us because of what we can do to create from the extensions that result. This helps you to see the answer to a question that came to you when we first began this discussion on growth. How do the gods and goddesses grow? If we are omniscient and all-knowing, then how is growth possible? You can see better now how you are the most fundamental element of how the universe works, and also how we grow and expand in our capacities and powers. You create and decide, and then all the universe is affected. This is also how you can sense purpose considering how many people you see around you, and how immense the universe is. Each action and thought that you have makes an effect on the way that the landscape is. Your contribution may seem insignificant and small, but it is a contribution nonetheless.
Yes, that's right. I did it. Look at this.
So let's talk a little bit about this concept of a landscape. When they develop the landscape and they grow, then they implement some things that they want to implement. And then when things change and we also start to change and we start to shift, then we're growing together because the landscape changes, we all adapt and we move and we start to develop ourselves because we're creating and evolving in ways that can all only be done if we have the new landscapes, because we can't see it until we get the new landscapes. And we're creating things that surprise and delight us because we're creating and extending beyond what we thought was possible, and we're all doing this together. This is really so great because what's happening is that the way that gods and goddesses grow is because they can see us growing and develop with us. And now we can see the most fundamental of this, how the universe works. We're working together and we're collaborating, and we're all expanding our capacities and powers together. So when we create and decide, then all of the universe is affected. This is how we can sense purpose, considering how many people there are around us, and see how immense the universe is. So each action and each thought that we make helps us and makes an effect on the way that the landscape is. And our contribution may seem insignificant, but it is a contribution nonetheless. Isn't that a beautiful concept?
This is also how you may sense just how important it is for you to grow and develop yourself, rather than besmirch the landscape or make it have dark holes that drag it down and reduce its beauty. Whenever you choose not to decide and not to create or flow into the spaces of intelligence and beauty, you shift the landscape as well. This is not a threat or something to make you feel guilty about. On the contrary, it helps you to see in even more intensity just how purposeful and full your life can be. Growth is a combined effort of all of you within the landscape that we create for you to work with. Now that you see this more clearly, you can all join together and create the kinds of landscapes that you want to create, but it will take all of you to shift the whole landscape. Joining and combining together will be the way you do this. Joining and combining with us is the way we all shift the universe that is ours to shift into the areas that we all want.
Yes! We did it! We are the change! Together!
This is such a big concept as it relates to our individual responsibility about being accountable for our own actions as to how we change things depending on what we do. If we don't do well, as they say, we besmirch the landscape. And we're a part of all this. We can be like the beautiful flower. What flower would you like to be? Or would you rather be a rock? What may take your choice. Anyway, every time we make mistakes or we reduce our efforts, we're not contributing, then it reduces the beauty of the landscape. And this concept of us improving it and be responsible for our own actions and choosing to create and flowing into the spaces of intelligence and beauty, then every time we do that, then it shifts the landscape and improves it. It's a very important concept for us because every time we do something great, every time we grow, every time we combine all of our efforts, every time that we change the landscape and improve it, then we have some new opportunities that show up for us and others around us. The more we join together and create the kind of landscapes that we want to create, then it takes all of us to shift the whole landscape, not just one or two of us. All of us has to join in. So it's very important that we all combine and really get together on all this concept. Joining and combining with the divine is the way that we all shift the universe. And that is ours to shift into the areas that we want. It's our creativity, it's our freedom to choose this. And I really encourage all of us to contribute, to combine and to join together and make the most beautiful landscape we can possibly have, because it makes it better for all of us. I love this concept. I love you. Thank you.